There are places on Okinawa where people say the past refuses to stay buried. Places where the jungle has grown back over trenches, where trees have swallowed abandoned roads, where rusted ammunition boxes still lie beneath the roots. And deep beneath the limestone hills, there are caves where the darkness has remained untouched since 1945. But some stories are stranger than others. There are stories of soldiers who disappeared during the Battle of Okinawa, patrols that went into the jungle and never came back. No bodies, no survivors, no explanation. One such story concerns a place remembered as Hill 178. The Marines who served in the area had a name for the patrol that disappeared there. They called them the Last Patrol. And according to the story, they are still walking through the Okinawan jungle. It happened during the final weeks of the Battle of Okinawa. By then, the fighting had become brutal. The Japanese defensive lines were collapsing. American forces were pushing farther south. Every hill, ridge, cave, and road seemed to hide another enemy position. The terrain made everything worse. Dense jungles, steep limestone ridges, narrow paths, deep ravines, and hundreds of caves. A unit operating in the area was ordered to send a small patrol toward a ridge identified on military maps as Hill 178. Their mission was simple: move toward the ridge, determine whether Japanese forces were still occupying the area, report back before dark. 6 Marines were chosen. Their names were never officially preserved in the story, but the men who supposedly knew them remembered 6 faces, 6 rifles, 6 packs, 6 men walking into the jungle. They left shortly after sunrise. Nobody thought anything of it, at least not at first. The patrol moved slowly through the jungle. The men had learned not to trust silence. On Okinawa, silence could mean anything. It could mean the enemy was gone, or it could mean the enemy was waiting. The patrol leader raised his hand. Everyone stopped. Somewhere ahead, a branch snapped. The Marines lowered themselves behind the vegetation. They waited. Nothing. Then another sound. A distant metallic click. One of the Marines whispered, "Japanese?" The patrol leader shook his head. Nobody knew. They continued. By noon, they reached the base of Hill 178. The ridge was covered in dense vegetation. Near the top, they found evidence of Japanese positions, a collapsed firing position, spent ammunition, an abandoned rifle, and something else. Footprints, fresh footprints. The patrol leader examined them. There were several sets, all heading uphill, none coming back down. He looked at the others. "We're going up." The Marines climbed toward the ridge. The jungle became thicker. The air became strangely still. At the top, They discovered a narrow entrance hidden behind vegetation. A cave. The opening was barely visible. One Marine crouched beside it. He looked inside. There's a tunnel. The patrol leader shook his head. We don't have time. He marked the location on his map. Then they heard something. A voice. Someone was speaking inside the cave. The Marines froze. It sounded like Japanese. The patrol leader raised his rifle. Everyone waited. Then the voice stopped. A few seconds passed. Then came another sound. Footsteps. Inside the cave. Approaching them. The Marines prepared for contact. But no one emerged. The footsteps stopped just inside the entrance. Then came 3 knocks. The patrol leader looked at his men. One of them whispered, "What the hell is that?" Nobody answered. The patrol leader made the decision. Back down. The 6 Marines began descending the hill. They had traveled perhaps 50 yards when one of them stopped. "Corporal?" No answer. The others turned. One man was missing. His rifle was still lying on the ground. His helmet was still beside it, but he was gone. The patrol leader called his name. Nothing. They searched the surrounding vegetation. Nothing. No blood, no footprints, no sign of a struggle. Just an empty patch of jungle. Then they heard something above them. A voice. The missing Marine. "Over here." The patrol leader looked toward the ridge. The voice had come from the cave. "Help me." The Marines stared at one another. Their missing man was inside the cave. Somehow, the patrol leader ordered them back uphill. They reached the cave entrance. "Corporal," the missing Marine answered. "I'm here." His voice sounded strangely calm. "Come out." Silence, then, "I can't." "Why?" A pause. "There's too many of them." The Marines exchanged nervous looks. "Who?" The missing Marine whispered, "The patrol." The voice suddenly changed. It no longer sounded like one man. It sounded like several people speaking at once. "6 of us went in." A pause. "Only 5 came back." The Marines backed away from the cave. Then a rifle shot exploded from inside. The sound echoed across the hillside. The patrol leader shouted, "Get down!" Another shot, then another, then silence. The men waited. No one emerged. By late afternoon, the remaining Marines began their return. They were supposed to reach their unit before sunset. They never did. When darkness came, a search party was sent after them. The search party found the patrol's tracks. They followed them to the base of Hill 178. Then the tracks stopped. All 6 sets. right in the middle of the jungle. There was no sign of the men, no bodies, no equipment, nothing except one thing: a helmet, sitting upright in the dirt. Inside it was a small piece of paper, a hand-drawn map, and on the map was a circle around the cave. Underneath it, someone had written, "Do not follow." The military searched the area for several days. Nothing was found. Eventually, the 6 Marines were listed as missing. The war continued, then ended. Years passed. The jungle reclaimed Hill 178. The cave disappeared beneath vegetation. The missing patrol became another tragedy among thousands. Another group of men swallowed by a battlefield that had already consumed too many. But the story didn't end there. Decades later, Okinawan residents began reporting something strange. At night, people occasionally heard footsteps moving through the jungle near the old battlefield. Not one person, but several. The footsteps always followed the same pattern: 6 sets of boots, moving together, slowly, one behind another. Sometimes people claimed they saw flashlights moving between the trees. Other times they heard voices. American voices, always speaking quietly, giving orders: stay low, watch the ridge, keep moving, and occasionally, where's Corporal? Then silence. In the 1980s, a group of American servicemen conducting nighttime training in the area reportedly encountered something unusual. They were moving through the jungle after dark when one of the men noticed lights ahead. He assumed another training unit was approaching. 6 flashlights, moving slowly through the trees. He called out, "Identify yourself." The lights stopped. The men in his group raised their weapons. Then the figures stepped into view. 6 American Marines, walking in formation. Their uniforms were covered in mud. Their helmets were old. Their equipment looked decades out of date. And every one of them was carrying a rifle. The modern servicemen assumed they were reenactors or another training group. One man stepped forward. "Hey." The 6 soldiers stopped. None of them spoke. The modern Marine noticed something strange. The soldiers weren't looking at them. They were looking past them, toward the hill. Then the patrol leader raised his hand. He pointed toward the jungle and whispered, "Move!" The modern Marines looked at one another. One of them asked, "Move where?" The patrol leader finally looked at him. His face was pale, his eyes were sunken, and his skin looked almost gray. He pointed toward the hill again, then said, "Before they see us." A sound came from the jungle, a deep metallic click, like a rifle being loaded. The 6 soldiers immediately turned and disappeared into the trees. The modern Marines followed as they ran uphill. The strange patrol was moving quickly now. The 6 figures passed between trees without making a sound. The modern Marines struggled to keep up. Then one of them noticed something. The footprints. The 6 soldiers were leaving footprints in the mud. But they weren't fresh. They looked old, ancient, as if the jungle had preserved them for decades. The patrol reached the top of the ridge. The 6 men stopped. They stood in a straight line, looking toward the cave. The modern Marines finally caught up. Then they saw what the patrol had been watching. Japanese soldiers, dozens of them, standing silently around the cave entrance. They weren't attacking, they weren't moving, they were simply waiting. The modern Marines raised their weapons. One shouted, "Who's there?" The Japanese soldiers turned. Every single one of them looked directly at the Marines. Then the jungle went completely silent. The 6 American soldiers disappeared. The Japanese soldiers disappeared. And the modern Marines were left alone. The men ran. They didn't stop until they reached their base. When they reported what happened, nobody believed them. But one of the older Okinawan workers did. He listened to their story. Then he asked, "How many American soldiers did you see?" 6. The old man nodded. Always 6. The Marines looked at him. "What do you mean?" The old man pointed toward the hills. "My grandfather saw them." "When?" "After the war." The Marines stared at him. "How long after?" The old man thought for a moment. "Maybe 10 years." One of the Marines laughed nervously. "You're saying the same 6 soldiers were walking around 10 years after the war?" The old man shook his head. "No." He looked directly at them. "I'm saying my grandfather saw them before the 6 Marines disappeared." Years later, another strange discovery was made. A group exploring the old battlefield found a rusted metal ammunition container buried beneath the roots of a tree. Inside was a notebook. Most of the pages had been destroyed by moisture, but one page remained readable. It appeared to be written by an American Marine. The handwriting was hurried. The final entry read, "We found the cave. Below that, there are men inside. They keep calling our names." The final line was written so faintly it was almost impossible to see. It said, "They say we are already dead. Nobody knows what happened to the 6 Marines of Hill 178. Their remains were never recovered. Their weapons were never found. Their identities slowly disappeared into the thousands of names associated with the Battle of Okinawa." But the stories continued. Even today, some people who travel through old battlefield areas on Okinawa say they sometimes hear footsteps behind them. 6 sets, never 5, never 7, 6. If they stop walking, the footsteps stop. If they turn around, nothing is there. But if they keep walking, the footsteps continue. Always behind them, always getting closer. And some say that if you walk far enough into the jungle, you may eventually see 6 men standing between the trees. 6 American Marines, covered in mud. Their uniforms frozen in the year 1945. Their rifles held at the ready, and the man at the front will raise his hand. He won't speak. He'll simply point toward the darkness, toward a cave, toward a place where something is still waiting. And if you follow him, you may hear the same 3 knocks. Then a voice from inside the cave. 6 of us went in. A pause. Only 5 came back. And if you hear someone whisper your name from inside, don't answer. Because according to the legend, the patrol isn't looking for the enemy anymore. They're looking for the 6th man. There is one final detail, one that makes the story even harder to explain. People who claim to have seen the patrol say the 6 soldiers never appear to be walking away from the cave. They're always moving toward it. Over and over again, night after night, year after year, as though they're trapped inside the final moments of a mission that ended 80 years ago. Maybe they don't know the war is over. Maybe they are still searching for the Marine who disappeared.